So now that we've got our object definition set up, we've got a relation defined between our document and our user object definitions, we can start to finally talk about permissions. So permissions are the reason we're all here. What are the kinds of things that we can do? What are the kinds of questions that we can answer about a particular resource type? So switching back to the diagram here, I'm going to start to add some permissions to the document type. So I'm going to add a permission for view. That's a common operation against the document. Another one we can add would be update or edit. We'll call it edit. And then we can also add a permission for deleting a document. I know what you're thinking. Why no create? So the reason that we don't put create at this level is because we need to actually have a document ID in order to be able to ask these questions. So now I'm just going to draw an arrow between the resource type and the permission for that resource type. Just to say that they're associated with one another. And now expressing this in the playground would look like this. So in the playground, we're going to say permission view. And we're going to start off by having that expressed as nil. What nil signifies here is that we want to skip the computation, but it's totally valid syntax. And it's saying that no user or no entity of any type should be considered as having view permission on a document. Then we'll add our others, edit, delete. And just to recap, the type of question that we can ask is, can user Jake view document 123? So this is the type of question we can now ask, but we've deferred the computation. We've deferred filling in the computation for later. So now that we've got the questions defined, we can talk a little bit about how to actually resolve and how to figure out who can do those things. So we can start, we've got a reader relation already. And here we can say that the reader is allowed to view the document. But when we consider our other permissions, should a reader be allowed to edit a document? Probably not. Should a reader be allowed to delete a document? Probably not. So we're going to need a different kind of relation in order to be able to express those computations. So just quickly going back to our model, we're going to say that in order to be able to view, you need to have the reader relation, and that's going to go to a user. And so when we talk about walking the graph, what we're really expressing is that, actually I'm going to go ahead and delete these arrows because I don't think they add any clarity. And we'll go ahead and line up these permissions here under document. So what we're saying here when we are talking about walking the graph is if we think of these as edges in a graph, and we're trying to say who can view a document, well, we start with that document and that intent, the view, and then we can ask who are the readers of the document, and then we can say that those users should be considered as having the view permission on the document. Okay, and now for a slightly more complicated case, we'll add an owner of a document that's also of type user. And we'll go ahead and add the owner. We'll give the owner of the document rights to view, to edit and delete that document. So you might be asking, why didn't we just create a permission called own and say that it's the owner who is allowed to own the document? Well, the reason that we didn't want to do that is because we want the call sites in code that we integrate against this permission model to be stable. So if we want to change the computation underneath the hood about what it means to be able to edit or delete a document, we want the call site to stay the same. So we want the call site to still ask this kind of question, right? Can user Jake delete the document? Versus a question that maybe doesn't make any sense. Can the user own the document? What does it mean to own the document? So that's why we decide to have two permissions with the same exact computation. But there's a trick. So far, the owner is not allowed to view their own document. And we'll fix that up by talking about the operations, the set operations that we can do against these various relationships. But before we get into that, let's just make sure that our model stays in sync. So we have an owner, and then an owner is also of type user. That's what this means here. And then we're saying in order to be able to edit the document, you need to be an owner. And in order to delete the document, you need to be an owner. All right, that's it for now.